came in late. My name's Gayatri, if I don't know. I think I know most of you. Okay, so I'm going to read this verse from the ancient yoga text, the Bhagavad Gita. This is a really wonderful verse. And it's text 58, contents of the Gita summarized from the Bhagavad Gita as it is. One who is able to withdraw his senses from sense objects, as the tortoise draws his limbs within the shell, is to be understood as truly situated in knowledge. So, it sounds pretty difficult to do, doesn't it? Withdraw our senses from the sense objects. It is. It's actually very hard to do if you're not chanting. We'll talk about that in a minute. So there's many different yoga processes, and a lot of people come here and they think, that these yoga processes and the yogis, when you think of the yogis in India, that they're following a very austere journey. It's a very difficult process, and it is for many of them. So probably most people have heard of Kundalini yoga. Very difficult process. They are wanting to withdraw their senses from the sense objects, totally have control over their senses and their mind, and they go through this very difficult process. They have to sit for hours and hours in meditation, and they sit in the lotus pose, which most of us can't do. I teach yoga, and there's very few people that come to my classes that can sit in lotus pose for any length of time. Anyway, they can. Maybe I'll be getting into it for a few seconds. There's very few people that can actually maintain that pose for like 8 hours, 10 hours a day. And excuse me. And they move the life force, or the life force up from the base of the spine up through the different chakras. And it's a very painful thing. It builds up heat as you move the life force up from the Sushumna up through the Sushumna, which is a subtle nerve channel that runs down the spine. As you move the life force up, it gathers heat. It gets very hot, and it's like burning inside. And then they get to the top of the head, and thank you. And then they lead to this hole in the top of the head, the Brahma Rudra, I think it's called. And during the time when they're meditating silently for many, many hours a day and working this, Sushumna up, they have to practice it. They have to have a certain diet, a very austere diet. It's a vegetarian diet, and but a very austere vegetarian diet. They don't eat lasagna. We go, well, we don't mind being vegetarians because our lasagna is better anyway. They don't have that sort of food. It's a very austere practice. And that's one yoga practice, Kundalini. And another one is the Ashtanga yoga process. So we tend to think of Ashtanga as being very athletic style, a very athletic style of yoga asana, where you jump through and you do lots of vinyasas, and you can, if you do a YouTube search for Ashtanga, there's these really super fit people that are just doing all these crazy moves, and you go, whoa, there's no way I could ever achieve that. That's really hard. It's almost like gymnastics, really. And this is not what Ashtanga yoga is actually. The yoga asanas are a very small part of the Ashtanga yoga system, and in the West we've sort of made it into the main feature. But once again, this Ashtanga yoga practice or process is a very, very difficult one to do. Going back to the Kundalini, so this is what the yogis do. They have to totally control their senses by their own means, totally controlled. They can't, I know this is getting a bit, yucky here, but they can't lose their semen at all. To get this life force moving up through the chakras, they have to be completely celibate, not even any wet dreams, nothing, because semen is blood transformed, and they need that energy. Rather than letting it out of the body, they need it in the body. So they live a totally celibate life. They're controlling their tongue completely. They don't speak, they don't chat to people. They just have their focus on their meditation. Everything's controlled, their whole body. They spend years and years practicing this control over their senses to achieve this verse, being like a tortoise or a turtle, withdrawing its limbs within its shell, withdrawing from the sense objects and controlling their senses. So, they take years and years, a whole lifetime to achieve this. And then the Ashtanga Yoga is the same. It's all about controlling the senses. It starts off with the yanas and niyanas, living a clean, moral life. And then pranayama, the breathing techniques, yogasana, that's sitting postures, mainly sitting postures. And the reason that yoga was practiced by the yogis was so that they could sit comfortably and practice this austere type of yoga, sitting in lotus position and just focusing one-pointedly. And yogasana, and then there was pratyahara, and this is what this is talking about here, the withdrawal of the senses from the external world, going within. And then there was a couple more, I always get the names mixed up, Dhyana and Dhyana, something like that. So do you know the right, correct pronunciations of them? They're very similar. And one is just practicing focus, just focusing on one particular object, just learning how to focus one-pointedly. And then meditation, and then samadhi. So that's the 8 steps in this Ashtanga Yoga process to achieve samadhi or enlightenment. This is what they're all trying to achieve, enlightenment. But they're using their own means to control the senses. Yeah, they have to practice a lot of austerities. And once again, if you're practicing Ashtanga Yoga, there's a certain diet, there's a certain way of life. You couldn't be living like we're living, day-to-day life, going off to work and stuff like that. To actually be successful at Ashtanga Yoga, it is a life's work where you just withdraw from the world, go live in a cave and meditate all day long, to achieve samadhi or that enlightenment. But the good news is we don't have to be austere. How cool is that? You can do it if you want. But I know that's not my choice. I don't like austerities that much. Our austerity is to chant these mantras, to bring these mantras into our life as much as we possibly can, because Bhakti Yoga is different to Ashtanga, it's different to Kundalini, because it is actually just a redirection of the senses. So we're not trying to use brute force and our own control to control the senses, our own means to control our senses. We are just redirecting or spiritualizing our senses. So the sense of hearing, we're listening to these mantras. And that's why anyone who's a serious practitioner of Bhakti Yoga, they have the kirtan on all the time, 24/7, just in your house. Or when you're at work, earphones in, when you're on the bus, when you're in the car. You can utilize your time at night. We sleep a third of our life away. Why not use that to be purifying, having these mantras purify us and the benefits from that. We use our tongue, by chanting. We're redirecting it, spiritualizing our tongue to chant these mantras, and we're using our what other senses? The sense of touch to do our japa meditation. So there's a nice process that we follow where we add japa meditation to our life on a daily basis and practice bead meditation. So we're using that sense of touch for our beads. We're using the sense of taste by offering our food to the Supreme. You can just do that. It's a really simple thing. People think it's really difficult, but you just have to ask, my dear Lord, please accept this offering for me. And if you do it with love and devotion, then the Supreme Person will accept it gladly, because he just wants our love. He wants that loving union with us. So we redirect the tongue, so we don't have to have an austere diet, just a vegetarian diet where we can cook really yummy food, and before we eat it, we offer it to the Supreme. So our senses can be easily redirected and spiritualized. And this is how we control the senses through Bhakti Yoga, just by redirecting the senses. And it's all wonderful. We can still have our great lasagnas. And so it's a totally different approach. It's a redirection rather than having to control the senses yourself. Because it's really hard to do. Hardly anyone can do it in this day and age. We're pretty uncontrolled. So yeah, Bhakti Yoga, just by adding these mantras, adjusting your life slightly. It's not like we have to add anything. Not like we have to change anything or give anything up. We're just adding this to our lives and redirecting our senses and spiritualizing them. And the benefits are enlightenment. So we can achieve enlightenment in a very simple and easy manner, an enjoyable manner. Everything we do is enjoyable. Hearing and chanting these mantras, eating prasadam, nice food that's been offered already is prasadam, and it's a purifying activity. And doing a mantra on beads, touch of the beads. So yeah, we can redirect all our senses so easily and enjoyably. And we can still achieve what these other processes are achieving through severe austerity. I know which one I'm choosing. I've already chosen it. So, good news, eh? Let's just chant some more.